Okay, good morning, and thank you for coming to Union Public Library virtually. We're so excited to have Susan here this morning. Many of you know her. She has helped us with so many workshops, both poetry and technology and job seeking. So that would be 3. And without further ado, or however you want to say it, Susan, take it away. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Debbie, for that beautiful introduction. And I want to wish the Union Public Library a happy library week, okay? Because this is that time, and this times like this and programs like this go to show just how important our libraries are, because it connects us in a variety of different ways. So, a little bit about me. My name is Susan Justiniano, also known as Rescue Poetics, and I'm going to share my screen because it does give some information about me. Today's session is called Business Communication and Etiquette. So I'm just going to hit the button that makes this all happen. See if it works for me. There we are. Because technology does what it wants to do when it wants to do, right? So here we are. We're going to talk about business communication and etiquette, effective writing. It's going to be some 5 key points, things we probably know but haven't or need a refresher on, especially with technology. And just a little bit about me here. I have experience in a variety of different areas, technology being one of them. I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an artist. I have 20 years of information technology experience. I have 20 plus years in human resources and information technology, creating policies and procedures, SOPs, and announcements, and creating documentation. I also have 10 plus years of training and development experience in a variety of different areas, technology, writing skills, as well as poetry. And then I'm an education specialist, and I have over 15 years of project management, which is becoming more and more relevant for us these days, especially since we're all remote. Most of us are remote. And we're going to cover some topics about remote etiquette as well. So then I've also have experience in grant writing, and I should also add on there grant reviewing. I've been on 2 panels so far this year to review grants. So writing becomes even more important, especially in that context. So this will cover talking about writing, the efficiency of words and things along that line. So I've also been in the creative arts, just some of the organizations that I'm involved in. And this is just a short list, believe it or not, of some of the things I like to be involved in a variety of different areas, because that's how you gain different perspectives. And I'm a strong believer in if you build together, you grow together. So you'll see me in different areas, either as Rescue Poetics or as Susan Justiniano. And just know that it's one and the same person. It's me. I'm a one-person show with a foundation of community. So I involve everyone wherever I can in anything that I do. So let's jump right into it. Let's talk about the importance of having a soft skill. And effective communication is certainly a soft skill. And what's a soft skill? We all know what the hard skills are. I can type, I can manage applications, I can answer a phone, I can use a copy machine. Those are hard skills. And what are soft skills? Soft skills is communication. How do I effectively communicate with you? How is my writing ability? Can I write for my audience? Can I write for different things in different areas? Those are soft skills. How you communicate with people physically as well as verbally, in addition to the writing skills. So then if you want to achieve effective communication, how do you do that? How do we then, as not a natural public speaker, how do I then push myself to do that or be that, knowing that my job requires that? And more and more and more, we're talking about social educational learning, right? So we become those people who talk about social justice. We become those people who effectively communicate in a variety of different areas. So we need to achieve those things for ourselves as well as for our community. So let's talk about working with a coach. If you've never worked with a coach, that's something that is encouraged a lot. So how do you work with a coach? How do I gain a mentor? It's probably already in your community. You probably already have it with the people that you're associated with and affiliated with. Mega, I can consider a coach, and I can consider her a mentor as well. because she shows me things I don't know, and we work together to achieve certain things. So practice. I'm a big proponent of practicing. And practice makes you feel comfortable with what you're doing. Practice helps you to ground yourself. Okay. When I say ground yourself, I mean, when you're nervous, it always helps to practice because if you go awry or something goes wrong, you know where you're coming back to. So practice is a big thing. So let's talk about communicating with yourself first. That's the most important thing. Because if you don't communicate with yourself first, you don't have the ability to communicate effectively with others. So, some of the things we want to make sure this virtual life has given us fatigue, a different type of fatigue that we are not accustomed to. So, then how do you know that you have fatigue? So, you avoid or you cancel your scheduled meetings. You're like, oh, I can't do that today. I don't have the capacity. That's fatigue. So then you turn off your video in view on a regular basis. Some of us turn it off because we're not camera ready. I've done that. I've done that plenty of times. I'm a big believer in capacity. You do what your capacity allows, right? Some are very strict about putting on your camera. Some days you just can't do it, right? So, and then you feel the need to spend time alone after meetings. I do that. I do that a lot because I'm constantly in meetings, constantly on virtual platforms. So I need to know decompress. I make sure that I block out 15 to 20 minutes after a session is done in order to get myself back to myself. So that's important. And if you're feeling tense or drained or low energy, those are things that you need to recognize about yourself and figure out what works for you in order to change that perspective, to reframe it. And then let's talk about the ability to handle usual things, everyday things that seem basic and just are overwhelming. Those are signs of fatigue. So you want to make sure that you take care of those things, that you take care of yourself first. Okay. So let's talk about how to combat the virtual fatigue. So evaluate your meetings. How long are they? What's the purpose? What's the value of this meeting? Does this really need to happen in this moment? Can it be done with an email, a text message, or some other project management tool? Do I really need to be in a meeting? And then you want to utilize the other forms of communication. You want to get up during meetings, especially if your camera is off, and just stretch your legs, stretch your back, stretch your neck, stretch whatever it is you need to stretch. And you could do certain exercises and rest your eyes. So eye strain, we're all familiar with it. We've all experienced eye strain. One of the things that I have found very helpful, especially in virtual meetings that we're constantly on, is the 20-20-20 rule, which means you take a break for 20 seconds, you look at something that's 20 feet away, and you do that every 20 minutes. Our eyes are not designed to look at screens constantly all day long, whether it's your mobile device screen or a computer screen. They're just not cut out for that. So take some time, look at yourself, reevaluate, take care of yourself, communicate with yourself. So that's very important. So once we've done that, once we've determined that we are in a position that we have communicated with ourselves, let's talk about effective writing. I'm going to cover 5 keys to effective writing, and this is a summary of what those 5 keys are. As we're going through these steps, there are going to be some examples. If you have any questions or you have any comments, you are welcome, since we are a small and mighty group, you are welcome to raise your hand, put your question in the chat, or to unmute yourself. If I say something that is unclear, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask again. If I'm moving too fast and you need me to go back, please feel free to let me know. I'm definitely open to that recommendation. So after this session, I will provide a sheet of links, resources that you can utilize. The presentation won't be shared, but if you need some information from the presentation, please let me know. I'm happy to direct you where to find that information. So let's talk about key number 1. Put the reader first. When we write something effectively, we're not in our own heads about the topic. We want to make sure, what does this mean? Put the reader first. This means know your audience. So communication is equal to understanding. If I'm writing something and you don't understand it, then it's not effective. If there are plenty of questions that you're asking based on what I'm writing or what I'm offering, then it needs to be clear. My communication needs to keep you in mind as the reader, as the consumer, as the person who's taking this information. We want to be sure to express and not impress. What does that mean? Big words, phrases that go over people's heads. That's You're trying to impress me. I'm not impressed by that. Tell me direct, tell me what you need to say, and let's get to the point right away, right? So when you describe something, you want to make sure that you have that your reader can picture it. If I'm reading a narrative for something, or if I'm reading an explanation of something, I want to be able to create that mental image so that I have a clear understanding of what you're sharing. So that's important. And then we want to tie it into each other, right? If I'm writing something for you, I want to be sure that what I'm writing is impactful for you, that you understand it and it ties into your knowledge. I don't want to write something that then is has no relevance to you. That's not effective. That doesn't do anything. It's one of those things, I can't read this. I got to move on from it, right? We've all experienced that. And then think about it. What's in it for me? You have to think about that perspective for your writer, okay? For your reader, rather. You, as you're writing something, what's in it for the reader? What are they getting out of this? What are the advantages of something like this? So let's talk about key number 2. Use simple words and short sentences. Word efficiency. It's very important to have an economic mindset for words. We're all very busy. We're all looking at emails. We're all getting information, absorbing and consuming information on a regular basis. We want to make sure that our point gets across, it's direct and it's simple so we can move on to what we need to do. So here are some examples. Per our conversation, I am enclosing herewith a remittance of $25 for the balance due on my account. That's 18 words. How more efficiently can I say that? What is the economic way to say that? So I'm just going to skip down to the one that says 8 words. Here's the $25 remaining on my account. Simple, effective, direct, and to the point, right? Another example. As pertaining to the question of whether to construct a new storage facility, corporate management will ascertain the appropriateness of such an issue in the near future. What does that even mean? What are you saying? What's happening here? There are many words that just direct me in a lot of different directions. Is there any real focus in this sentence? So let's make it focused. Let's give it the economy it needs. Management will decide next week whether to build the new storage facility, right? Simple, direct, to the point. And that way we can move on. So let's talk about some quick tips when you're writing effective communication. And those are some of the things we just went over, some of the examples. Avoid wordy prepositional phrases. I'm a poet. I like to write. I like to write things, right? So I have to keep in the mindset that as a business person, as I'm effectively communicating with someone, that I want to maintain just the word that says what I need to say, not necessarily a complete phrase. In a poem, I might, in the amount of, or in order to, or due to the fact that, in the event that, during the time, and I can find simpler words for that. I can find direct words that will accomplish exactly what I need to accomplish and be effective and have that economy of words. So let's talk about number 3. And this is a huge pet peeve of mine. I don't know about you, but everything is an acronym. Everything is a jargon. Everything is this. You have abbreviations for everything, right? But I don't know what you're saying. I don't know where your abbreviation is coming from. I don't know what it means, especially as a first time reader to something that you're sharing with me. If you're a friend and we have a communication, we have a dialogue going on back and forth, I'll know some of the ways that you speak and I'll understand those. So, but as a new person reading something for the first time, I don't need acronyms. I need direct language. So one example of that is that FMIS system from Global provides VORDME nav redundancy. What is all that? What does all of that mean? So let's make it simple. Let's make it direct. Global's new flight management system provides several ways to navigate your airplane, including the latest in satellite navigation. So there you go. So here we have direct, we've said the same thing. We've eliminated any questions because on the first one, I'll Google an acronym and I shouldn't have to spend my time doing that. So I'm also a research nerd. So those things will, I want to know what this means. What is this? I'm a word person. I want to know what this means. But if the language is there, then I don't need to go search for it. It's effective. It's time saving. I can consume this information the way it is intended to be consumed, directly to the point. And the bottom, you'll see there another example. We have a 3-line sentence there, whereas now we can eliminate most of that and create a single direct sentence of communication. So let's move on to number 4. And I just want to stop right here to see if there are any questions or comments. I see there's something going on in the chat. Let's take a look there. And here we are. So Paul has provided us with a tip, and that's really great. Thank you, Paul, for sharing that, to write down and then cut it in half. Exactly right. That's exactly what we're talking about, using word efficiency. So that information is very helpful and is in direct correlation to what we're talking about here. We have an hour together, and we want to make sure that we have effective time together. So we want to ensure that our words are very specific to what we're doing, right? So let's talk about key number 4, write with verbs and nouns and use active voice. That means in the moment, happening now. It's happening right now. And when is it okay? Know when it is okay to use that passive. So here we are. The first example on this, the company, which is your subject, sells, which is your verb, insurance, which is your outcome. So we have a very specific, very direct line that gives us the information we need in this efficient way. And then in a passive voice would be insurance is sold by the company, right? So, okay, that's great. That's wonderful. Active voice is sells. Passive voice is sold. So you understand the differences. The construction crew repaired the road. Direct, efficient, active voice, giving us what we need when we need it, right? And then the last example, test showed the new material did not wear well. Specific, to the point, active voice. So we want to ensure that we use those things that are provided, the basic tools, the building blocks for what we're looking to accomplish. So as we're moving to number 5, there we are. So number 5. Oh, actually 4 again? Yeah, look at that. I duplicated that. Okay, so number 5. Format your document. This is specific to writing. Format your document to improve readability. Paul offered a perfect example. You're going to cut it in half, and we're going to go into more detail about that. So because most of the time you're going to spend before you're sharing information is you're going to cut it down. You're going to make it more efficient. You're going to streamline what you're doing. So here we are. Lists and bullets. I'm a huge believer in lists and bullets. Give me what you need to tell me in a list so I don't have to read back and forth and back and forth. I can get it all in one shot, right? Bullets, charts. If you could tell me something in a chart, I love charts. I love colors. So tell it to me in a chart. I'm happy with that. You want to identify those specific things that are important by bolding, by using italics and using headers. I want to be able to jump from one thing to another to another. And in writing for information technology, in writing policies, in writing user guides, that becomes even more important. When you're writing instructions for someone, it becomes important to be efficient in that way. And then you want to be sure to use the 100-word rule. So think about it. You want to plan and organize and then write. And before you begin, ask yourself these 3 important questions. Who is your target audience? Who are you writing for? You're not writing for yourself. You're writing for someone else. Who are you writing for? And if you're not sure who you're writing for, then that's something that you need to research. Find out who you're writing for. In some cases, I'm writing for poets. Some cases, I'm writing for a panel. Some cases, I'm writing for technology. Those users who don't understand technology or are not familiar with technology. So I want to be sure I know who I'm writing for, who is my audience, and what is the purpose of your message. And you can make these summaries for yourself. And these are things that you can utilize to add to user guides, to add to instructions. This is written for boom, 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 boom. Beginner level, intermediate level, power user level, different different aspects of what it is you're doing. And then you want to be sure that your reader uses the information. So, excuse me, how will the reader use this information? To learn a new platform. Will the reader use this information to learn a new lesson in something that's happening? To learn about upgrades and updates and information, to submit for publication, to have their resume reviewed. If you're reviewing it, what's the process? You're talking applications and jobs. My audience is either human resources or the manager that's reviewing for that position. So I want to be sure that I'm writing something that speaks to that person, that speaks to that experience and information. I want to be sure that they're going to be using that information for the purposes intended, right? So, and as you begin, you want to assemble your useful information. And the 3 bullet points are right there. Who are you writing for? What are the purposes? And how will the reader consume this information? How will they use this information? That's useful information. So, and research what you need in order to feel comfortable with what you're writing. And then you want to determine what's important. Do I need to tell you the whole entire story of my life and how I became an information technology specialist? No, I don't need to do that. I need to give you specific information. This is where I am. This is what I've accomplished. This is where I'm going. As an education specialist, that's the information I want to share. And then in addition to that, we want to show what to leave out. I don't need to give you a 20-year history because if we're going to have a dialogue after, we can talk about that 20-year history. We can summarize that. How much of that information is really necessary? Do I need to give you a 4-page cover letter? Not really. I can give you 2 paragraphs and accomplish the same thing. And then you want to be able to have your information in a logical manner. I'm not going to share something with you that happened 20 years ago if it's not relevant to today, to what we're talking about, to what we're doing. I want to make sure that I give you the chronology that is impactful for you. So let's talk about the logic of that. Let's make sure that we have that in our minds and when we're writing something.
Susan, before you
Yeah,
go on,
sure.
I may have missed it. What is the 100-word rule?
Oh, great. Thank you for bringing that up. So the 100-word rule is you want to keep what you have to say within 100 words. If it's more than 100 words, where can you cut out? What can you eliminate? Like as a poet, I submit my bio on a regular basis, right? For different things, whether it's as a teaching artist, a publication, whatever it is. Those are kind of like job applications for the arts, right? So I want to make sure that I have my bio, for example, kept to 100 words. So that shows only the very specific highlights of what it is I want to share. And that's what the 100 rule is, giving highlights of what you want to share. Thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. So as we're moving on, we want to talk about 4 ways to organize our thoughts and organize our writing. Okay, and I'm going to go over these 4 points here. We want to talk about division. We want to talk about comparing and contrasting. We want to talk about cause and effect. We want to talk about problem analysis solution. Big words, right? So it sounds like it's a lot. It sounds like it's very, but we do this on a regular basis. We do this on a daily basis. When someone says to you, don't answer an email angry, right? That's problem analysis solution. Wait 24 hours before you respond. You want to make sure that you have what the main idea is. We do this on a regular basis, whether we do it consciously or subconsciously. It's something that we achieve through every communication that we share, whether it's a physical, they talk about, make sure that your body language is one way. That's one way of communication. And you want to talk about your vocal language. You want to talk about your written language. There are different ways we organize on a daily basis, on a regular basis. So let's take the first one. Start with the main idea, then discuss the parts. What's your main idea? What do you want to achieve? So here's an example of that. Acme Corporation faces 4 problems that threaten its competitiveness. That's the main idea. That's the highlight. That's the overall summary of what it is I want to accomplish. And then we can break it down. As you can see, this is done with bullet points, and it utilizes this in an effective way. And then what we want to do is compare and contrast the information. So as we're looking, we want to use familiar to explain the unfamiliar. I don't know anything about Zoom, for example, so I want to utilize words and information that is familiar to you to describe something, or to me, that I don't know anything about. Explain it to me so that I can understand it, right? That's very important. And then you want to add a conclusion to front. What do I want to achieve? What is being achieved by this right now? For example, and it gives an example right here. If we expand in the West, we will face the same challenges as we did in expanding in the South. And then what are those challenges? So the familiar in this case is the second part of this sentence, this statement. Challenges as we did expanding to the South. So that's the familiar to explain the unfamiliar. Those in the West may not be familiar, but those in the South, if I'm using that as an example, they can go, I understand now, right? And then it lists the different information, again, in a bullet point way, and it creates that tie-in, that buy-in from being familiar of what it was experienced in the South to now what can be experienced in the West. So you want to be able to make sure that you have your comparisons and your contrasts. So the next way to organize your thoughts is cause and effect. So you want to present a clear way and a clear analysis. So A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, E. You see how it follows that pattern, that path, that logical step, the next logical step, right? We all know the alphabet. The English alphabet is 26 letters, and it starts with A and ends with Z. So there is that definitely that cause from one to the next, to the next, to the next, the logical steps, right? So an example of that is reorganizing the marketing department will cause 2 benefits and 1 problem. Cause and effect. The cause is we're rearranging, right? We're reorganizing. What's the effect? It's going to give us benefits and it's going to give us a problem. So, and what are those? So what are the logical components? It's going to improve accountability. It's going to create better communication. And what's the problem? So you list your benefits first and then your problem last, because that's something that can be solved with review and information. So you're giving the logical order of things. So, and that brings us to the next one in the 4 ways to organize. Problem analysis solution. Find a straightforward way to offer recommendations. What's a big saying? Don't bring me a problem unless you have a solution, right? So bring the problem up and have the solution at the same time so that we can effectively communicate, okay, this is happening, this is not working, this is how we can fix it. Okay, so that's always a big thing, and that's a way to communicate effectively what you're doing, what you're looking to accomplish there. And here's an example of that. So the shipping dock is the shipping dock's inability to ship product fast enough results from an inefficient tracking system. And the solution, and it lists the solutions, straightforward, direct, and to the point. As we're looking to do interviews, as we're looking to get into a new field of work, or if we're looking to increase what we're doing and maybe get that next promotion that is on the list on our ladder for achievements, right? We want to be able to provide what the current problems for. As I'm going into this position, what are the solutions do I bring to the table? What does it happen? What happens there in this case? How do I then create those efficiencies for you? And that starts with language. So let's talk about the next step. You want to plan, you want to organize, and you want to write. You don't want to do it backwards. You A free thought, free thinking is great for journaling. It is not great or effective for business communication or communication when you're trying to share something with someone. And free writing can take you anywhere and everywhere. So you want to develop your outline. You want to create your points, your bullet points for yourself. You want to create that writing. You want to the easiest part of it first. Always do the easiest part of it first so you can spend the time on the hardest part as you need to. You want to develop your major sections one at a time. Create your bullet points for yourself, then write your paragraphs underneath it, and then write your bullet points under those paragraphs so that you have your logic of what it looks like. You want to introduce your main ideas. Main idea is we're holding a session, a virtual session on effective communication, right? That's the main idea. So then what's the main point of the first paragraph? The main point is we're going to increase effectiveness and efficiency in body language, in vocal language, in writing language for the business world as well as for the creative world. Let's go out there and get it done. And then you want to turn off your internal editor. At first, you just want to write. Okay, this is where that free write part comes in. We have a tendency, I have a tendency to edit as I write. So in some cases, that's really effective. In other cases, it feels like a waste of time. So if I write down my ideas first, and then I write down the paragraph and the information, I can go back and edit at any time. I'm a strong believer in getting up, walking away, and coming back and look at something with fresh eyes. We can't constantly be in our own heads and on the paper and writing things or on the computer and writing things and think that we're being effective in that. So we can take a break. We can do that and think about that. 90% of writing is rewriting and editing. And that goes to Paul's point of reducing what you're writing. And that's where the editing part comes in. That's where the rewriting comes in. That's where how can I say this better? How can I say this with less words? How can I say this that's even more direct to the point, right? And let the document cool. Walk away. Let it sit there. If you're not sure, you're stuck, you have some kind of block, I know there's something else I should be saying, but I don't know what it is, just walk away. Leave it a minute. Let it sit 10 minutes, 15 minutes overnight, and then come back to it. And you will look at it with a fresh eyes and a fresh brain. And that's always an advantage. And then you want to do a fog test. What is a fog test? The readability test. And does it aim to determine the level of text difficulty or how easy a text is to read? So is it complicated? Is it too many words? Is it too wordy? Is it too flowery? So you want to make sure that when your reader looks at it, they're not in a fog when they're looking it over. They're not in a fog when they're reading. And then, again, to Paul's point, you want to cut your first draft by at least 10%. And that's easy because most of us tend to write a lot of words that we don't need to add. So we can do that. I find myself editing something multiple times before I'm sending it out. So I see that we have a comment in the chat. Let's see what that is. Thank you. Thank you. This is amazing. I love the comments. I love the comments in the chat. Please keep it up. Keep doing it. So now that we have talked about writing, we've talked about the process, we've talked about the ability to monitor our words or change our words, know who our audience is. I want to ask before we move into the next part of it, Mega, I see that you have your hand raised. So what's your question?
Yeah. So I wanted to know that when you mentioned about the fog test, is it something like we have like when we want to do the punctuation checker, the line and copy editing, we also have our like the experience as in like a person, and also we have certain tools to assist us in those things. So in the fog test, is it something available on the internet or as an app, which in addition to our own previous experience, we can also use those?
That's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking that. So a lot of the software, the resources that we utilize come with different plugins or components, like Grammarly is, and I'm not touting Grammarly at all, provides you the ability to use a fog test, to put your stuff in through there, to define whether it is too wordy, whether it has too much information. whether they can be word efficiency. In programs like Microsoft Word, which I use all the time, it gives you a grammar correction. You have to activate those, but it does give you the ability to become more efficient with your words. So there are platforms and there are resources out there that you can utilize. So thank you for that question. That's excellent. Anyone else? Okay, so let's talk about virtual communication for a minute. So more and more of our day-to-day communications take place in the virtual conferencing platforms. And we've been effective with that since what, 2020? So here we are 3 years in. And virtual communications go everywhere. You're talking text messaging, you're talking FaceTime, you're talking Google Meet, you're talking WhatsApp, you're talking Zoom, you're talking all the conferencing platforms, right? And that is just, it gives us the ability to communicate globally where we might not have had that ability to do so before. It opens up a lot. It also opens up some etiquette that we may not have considered before. An example of that is you may be on mute, but your camera is on. Doesn't mean I can't see what you're doing. I may not be able to hear you, but I can see what's going on. So we need to be conscious of that. As you can tell, I have a virtual background for a sense of privacy. I share on a regular basis and want to ensure that my communication is effective and specific to what we're talking about. In addition to that, that blue background also incites calm. So the colors are also effective in sharing information. Debbie has a lot of things going on in her background, but it's also fascinating. I want to see it all. And Mega has amazing stuff going on in her background too. And I want to get to know that. That's all part of the virtual communication. These are communications that are happening without us even having to say anything. So those are things to keep in mind. So let's talk about effective communication during virtual sessions. Okay, think about that. Even the most excellent practiced communicator can flub. They can make a difference. It can be a bit challenging. I have a topic that I'm passionate about and I want to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. Sometimes you will hear that leave space for others to speak. That's very important. In a virtual setting, it's easy and difficult to have a conversation because when you interrupt someone, it changes the whole focus of everything. That's why the tools like raising your hand, adding your questions to the chat, and information, being mindful of the space that you're in, those things are very important when you're talking about effective communication. I don't want to distract you if you're speaking about something and I have some input. I want to be able to just take what you're saying, have my question, then I put it in the chat. And if there's a Q&A, then you'll get to my question. And you want to think about, a lot of people are very in-person energy people, right? So there's a big difference between the energy of a virtual platform versus an in-person platform. In a virtual platform, a person can turn off the camera and I won't see you. I may not see my audience or who I'm speaking with, right? In person, I know who's in front of me. I can see everything that's going on. So you want to think about that. And things that you do in person may not translate well to the virtual stage. For example, if you are a person who is boisterous and has a big voice, that may not work in a virtual platform. That may come off as being screened at. Think about it. If I have words, look, I'm making motions. Some of my motions are cut off because they're not in the frame of the camera. One of the most effective tools that I found is to ensure that my camera, that I am directly in the center of the frame, so that if I move right or if I move left, I'm still captured in the frame. Another effective tool that I have found is to ensure that your camera doesn't cut your head off, right? Because there's nothing worse than having your head cut off or someone seeing you from here. In a virtual setting, another effective tool is not wearing the same colors as your background. And the reason for that is you could very easily get lost in your background, right? And then you look like a disembodied. John, I see that you have your hand raised. What's your question? If you're speaking, you're muted. Are you with us, John?
Sorry about that. I know you're speaking about camera, but it prompted me to think about audio too. I'm a person who has a slight hearing impairment, and uh, uh, in presentations, it helps when the speaker is able to use like a mic headset, because it resonates in the room, and the clarity isn't always there. It makes it difficult, because the computer, wherever the mic is in the computer, doesn't necessarily pick up the articulation, and I don't know how other people are hearing, the presentation, but I know I'm straining at times, and I have headphones on. So
Yeah, I agree with you, John. It sometimes has been a little bit difficult because of the reverberation or the almost tunnel effect of the sound, which is why I also use a headset.
Thank you for bringing that. Those are very relevant and specific points of virtual sessions and communication. Having done a variety of different presentations, I tend to use an external mic because the computer mic doesn't achieve the sound or the impact that I'm looking for. As a person who really doesn't like headsets, I understand exactly what you're saying, and I respect that. One of the things that I found, if I find it difficult to hear, is I turn on the closed captioning. So that's something that I will take back with me. That's a nugget of information and improvement that I can utilize, and using a headset. So that's something I will definitely integrate into my virtual communication. So thank you for that.
And that might be a personal preference, but they do have microphones that are stand microphones. Back in the day, when they used to have it would sit on the table, and I'm not talking like a podcast microphone. The computers used to have two jacks, one for the mic and one for the speaker. And now everything is one jack. But I still have those old microphones, and it would be a little platform and like an extender that would come up. Because I know for folks that are autistic, they're very skin and touch sensitive, so they may not want to wear something. But that would be less, tactile. So.
Thank you for that. So see, I learned something new today as well. And I love that. In this community, I'm learning from you and you're learning from each other. And that's incredible. So thank you for that input, John. Really, really appreciate it. Does anyone else have any feedback or comments or experiences that you'd like to share with the group? Okay. So from here, during virtual sessions, so one of the things that I am guilty of on a regular basis is multitasking. I'm a serial multitasker, right? So when you're talking about virtual communications, such as conference room platforms, we want to ensure that we respect the space that we're in. And that includes not multitasking. You don't want to see me looking down at my phone. You don't want to see me looking at someone else or something else. Sometimes you can help those distractions, but on a regular basis, if you feel that you can't accomplish that on camera, then turn your camera off. That's it. That way the speaker or other members in the virtual setting are not distracted by what's going on in your space. So I think that's a fair thing to add there. You want to check your infrastructure, which is something that John and Paul are talking about. Your infrastructure includes your Wi-Fi, includes your equipment, includes your camera, your microphone, your headset, whatever it is that you're utilizing to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish. Keep those things in mind. Keep in mind that when you're using Wi-Fi, that anything that is turned on that gives you a notification can be heard if your microphone is not muted. In addition to that, it can also interrupt the streaming of a virtual conference. So as you're getting notifications, it could create that effect of being frozen. Close whatever it is that you need to close that is not part of your meeting if you can do that. So that's important in that aspect of it. Improve your tone. We're constantly told that 90% of a message, wait, is it 95 or 70% of your message is in your words, or maybe the other way around?
The
70%.
1959 study by Schomburg was 7% is words, 38% is body language, tone, and 55% is body language. More recent studies show that it's closer to about 20% in words and 35% in tone, and the rest in body language.
Thank you very much for that. So see, and that just goes right into the next topic of body language, improving your tone and your body language. So I want to ensure that my tone is even and friendly and relaxed when I'm doing a presentation. I can be passionate in a different way. I can be passionate in another aspect. But when we're speaking, we want to make sure also that because it's a virtual setting, that we articulate our words specifically so that they are heard. We don't know how many layers what I say goes through for you to hear it. So we want to ensure that each of our words, we want to maintain an even pace when we speak on a virtual platform. Because when you speak quickly, in person, I might catch a few things, but virtually, those words get eaten up by the ethos, by the internet, by the Wi-Fi, so by the microphone even. So we want to ensure that our words are clear and precise, and our tone is even, and our body language is open, and that we have that information. These are just different ways, especially if you're doing interviews virtually. It's very important to understand how important what you see impacts how I'm perceived. So here I am, I can practice. I can turn a Zoom on my own, and I can practice myself. I can take a look at, I can record it on my own and go back and look at that and see, okay, this could be different. Oh, I'm looking away too many times here. I'm totally distracted there. Oh, I need to sit facing forward. Oh, I'm off center. Oh, my voice is not clear there. Oh, I'm eating my words there. So these are things that we can do for ourselves.
Susan, as a career coach, I last week was working with a client who happens to be South Asian, but I find this with a lot of people who English is not their first or primary language, that, excuse me, their speech pattern make it difficult for many other people, both English speakers and non-English speakers, to understand what they're saying in English. And so I suggested to this gentleman that he literally slow down his speech pattern and stop and take a breath and actually look away before opening his mouth, so that he would be more clear and concise in his presentation. And in doing so, he was able to get through the first 2 of 4 interviews so far with Disney World for a director level IT position. So you're absolutely right. You need to be very clear and concise. You need to be aware of your pace and your tone.
Thank you for that. That's wonderful advice, especially coming from a career coach. So, and to have that information, to have that buy-in to understanding, practice. For me, I am a speaker. I am a bilingual speaker. So there are times when my speech pattern is like just constant rapid fire, right? I know who I'm talking to, so I'm speaking quickly and I can say what I gotta say. And other times I need to understand that I need to moderate. I need to moderate my tone, and I need to moderate my pace. And that goes into understanding that these soft skills are included with emotional intelligence. Understanding you need to be aware of what it is. And the way to do that is through practice. Write out what it is you might say. Write your own bullet points when you're going to speak, so that if you get distracted or if you get moved away from what it is you're talking about or writing about or discussing, you have your bullet points to get back to. So effective writing comes not only with those that we're communicating with others, it also comes with communication of ourselves. So in order for me to feel comfortable in a presentation such as this, I practiced this presentation several times, and I've recorded myself with this session to see that where I can improve, what I can do differently. I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes, and some of them will come through. Some of them, like my nervousness may not show. And I want to ensure that I have the confidence to know that I can come back to it. I can come back to what it is that I'm discussing. So thank you for that. So this brings us to questions, comments, feedbacks, and Debbie, announcements. So before that, I just want to say thank you to everyone for attending. This has been a very educational session for me, and I hope that you were able to utilize some of these tips. And again, the presentation will not be shared, but I will share some links, and I'll send those to Debbie so she can send them out to her. So Debbie, I'm turning it over to you. Debbie, if you're speaking, we don't hear you. Oh,
I'm here. I'm sorry.
there you are.
Was there another question?
Does anyone have, this has just been such an engaging group. I don't want to